Ethan and Sophia had been married for years. From the outside, they looked like a normal couple. They had a nice home, steady jobs, and were often seen together at family events and social gatherings. To friends and neighbors, their life seemed peaceful, but behind closed doors, things were not the same. Their marriage had slowly changed. What began with love, laughter, and long conversations had turned into arguments, silence, and blame. Small disagreements often grew into bigger fights. Sophia felt Ethan was too quiet, too simple, and not exciting enough for her. She wanted more attention, more romance, and more drama. Ethan, on the other hand, valued peace and stability. He believed a strong marriage was built on loyalty, respect, and calm support. Sophia, however, had grown restless. Instead of seeing Ethan's patience as love, she began to see it as weakness. She often criticized him, saying he was not enough for her. Ethan tried to explain, tried to care for her in his own way, but nothing seemed to satisfy her anymore. One evening, after another heated argument, Sophia crossed a line. Her words cut deep. She bragged that she could replace Ethan at any time. With pride in her voice, she said, "I can find another man in just 24 hours." Ethan stared at her in silence. Inside, he felt the sting of her words, but on the surface, he remained calm. With a quiet voice, he replied, "Okay, then try." In that moment, their marriage began to head toward a truth neither of them could ignore. The argument between Ethan and Sophia grew louder that evening. What started as a small discussion about household responsibilities quickly turned into a storm of accusations. Sophia stood with her arms crossed, her voice sharp, blaming Ethan for being boring, unromantic, and too predictable. "You don't know how to make me feel special," she shouted. "You don't take me out, you don't surprise me, and you never fight for me. Do you even care about this marriage?" Ethan, tired of the same accusations, tried to stay calm. "Sophia, I care. I always care. I work hard. I give you stability, and I've always been loyal. Isn't that worth something?" But Sophia only laughed bitterly. "Loyalty? That's the bare minimum. Do you think being loyal makes you enough? Any man can do what you do. In fact," she paused, her eyes flashing with pride, "I could replace you in a day. 24 hours, Ethan. That's all it would take for me to find someone better." Her words filled the room with heavy silence. Ethan looked at her carefully, feeling the weight of every syllable. It wasn't just anger speaking. She truly believed it. Instead of shouting back, Ethan simply nodded. "If that's what you think," he said quietly, "then go ahead. Try." Sophia smirked, mistaking his calmness for weakness. In her mind, she had already won the argument. She thought men were lining up, waiting for a chance to be with her. She believed Ethan would soon come crawling back, begging her to stay. But Ethan's silence was not weakness. It was strength. He had just given her the freedom to test her own words, and soon enough, she would face the truth hidden behind her arrogant claim. After Sophia's bold claim, the house grew quiet again. She walked away feeling confident. But Ethan stayed in the living room, thinking deeply about what had just happened. Her words kept echoing in his mind. "I can replace you in a day." He felt a sharp pain in his heart. For years, he had given his best to the marriage. He worked hard to provide, stayed loyal, and always tried to avoid unnecessary fights. He believed that patience and kindness were the keys to a lasting relationship. But now, he realized Sophia didn't value those things at all. Ethan could have shouted, argued, or begged her to see his worth. But instead, he chose silence. He understood that nothing he said would change her prideful attitude. If she believed she could replace him so easily, then perhaps she needed to see for herself what reality was like without him. That night, as Sophia slept peacefully, Ethan lay awake. He was not planning revenge, nor was he consumed by anger. He simply made a quiet decision. He would no longer fight for someone who didn't see his value. He would step back and let her prove her own words. For the first time in years, Ethan felt strangely calm. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted. He no longer had to prove himself. Soon, Sophia would discover that loyalty, patience, and true love were not things you could replace in 24 hours. The next day, Sophia decided to prove her point. She was still proud of her words and believed Ethan had underestimated her. In her mind, finding another man within 24 hours would be easy. She started by messaging a few old friends. Some responded quickly with flirty comments, happy to hear from her. This boosted her confidence. Then, she downloaded a dating app, setting up a profile that showed her smiling photos and described her as fun, adventurous, and free. Within hours, her inbox was full of messages. Dozens of men wanted to chat with her, and she felt powerful. That evening, she went out with one of them. He was charming at first, paying her compliments and making her laugh. But as the night went on, she realized his interest was shallow. He kept checking his phone, talking about himself, and by the end of dinner, he hinted only at a casual fling. Sophia forced a smile, but inside she felt disappointed. The next day, she met another man for coffee. At first, he seemed polite, but soon he made rude jokes about marriage and bragged about how many women he had dated. Sophia compared him to Ethan, who never disrespected her, and the man suddenly looked much less attractive. By the end of the week, Sophia had spoken to several men, so wanted only one thing. Others quickly lost interest. None of them offered her the loyalty and stability she had once taken for granted. Still, she refused to admit defeat. Pride kept her chasing, but deep inside, a small voice whispered what she didn't want to hear. Ethan was not as replaceable as she had thought. At first, Sophia laughed off her failed meetings, telling herself she just hadn't found the right man yet. But after several more awkward encounters, the excitement she once felt began to fade. Each conversation with strangers left her feeling emptier than before. The men she met had little interest in her as a person. They liked her appearance, but they didn't want to hear her thoughts or respect her feelings. Some spoke openly about not believing in commitment. Others disappeared after a single meeting, treating her like a temporary amusement. The attention she once craved started to feel shallow and meaningless. One night, after returning home from another disappointing date, Sophia sat alone in the quiet house. For the first time, she noticed how empty it felt without Ethan's calm presence. She missed the small things she had ignored for so long. His steady voice, the way he listened without judgment, and the quiet comfort of simply knowing he was there. Her friends also noticed a change in her. When she proudly told them she was testing her freedom, some of them shook their heads. One friend said gently, "Sophia, you're making a mistake. Men like Ethan don't come around often. Be careful before you lose him for good." Sophia brushed off their advice with a laugh, but deep inside, the words struck her. She began to realize that what she once called boring was actually rare and valuable: loyalty, patience, and love. Though she would not admit it out loud, a small seed of regret had taken root in her heart. She had wanted to prove Ethan wrong, but instead, she was starting to see how wrong she had been. While Sophia was busy trying to prove her point, Ethan lived a very different story. He didn't chase after her, argue, or demand her attention. Instead, he quietly focused on himself, something he had not done in years. He began spending more time with his friends, enjoying simple evenings filled with laughter and conversation. They reminded him that he was more than just a husband stuck in a failing marriage. He was a kind, hard-working man who deserved respect. Their support gave him new energy. Ethan also returned to his old hobbies. He picked up books he had left on the shelf, started running in the mornings, and even joined a local community group. These small steps brought him peace, and for the first time in a long while, he felt truly free. People around him noticed the change. At work, colleagues commented on how relaxed and confident he seemed. A female co-worker who had always admired his calm nature encouraged him, saying, "You're better than the way she treats you. Don't forget your worth." Her words stayed with him, not as a romantic promise, but as a reminder that he deserved kindness and appreciation. Ethan did not rush into dating or revenge. He understood that healing required time, and he gave himself that gift. His silence was not weakness. It was strength. He was proving, without saying a word, that he could live fully without Sophia's constant criticism. As days turned into weeks, Ethan realized he no longer felt tied down by her arrogance. The more she tried to replace him, the more he found peace in moving forward. What Sophia thought would break him was actually building him into someone stronger. Sophia's confidence began to crumble piece by piece. What had started as a proud claim that she could replace Ethan in a single day was now turning into a painful lesson. Each new man she met only reminded her of what she had lost. They were either selfish, unreliable, or uninterested in anything long-term. None of them offered the steady love Ethan had quietly given her for years. As the weeks passed, her pride turned into frustration. She kept telling herself she deserved better, but the truth stared her in the face. Ethan had been the one who treated her with patience and respect, and she had thrown it away. At home, the silence grew unbearable. Ethan no longer waited for her arguments, no longer asked where she was going, and no longer tried to fix what was broken. His quiet absence was louder than any words he could have spoken. For the first time, Sophia felt the weight of being truly alone. Her friends, who once cheered her on, began to distance themselves. Some were tired of hearing her complain, while others simply didn't want to be involved. Without their support, she felt abandoned. Even the men from the dating app stopped calling. The attention that once made her feel powerful was gone, leaving only emptiness behind. One evening, as she sat on the edge of her bed, Sophia finally admitted to herself what she had been avoiding. She had made the biggest mistake of her life. Her arrogance had blinded her, and now she was paying the price. She had thought she could replace Ethan in a day. Instead, she discovered that she had lost something irreplaceable: his loyalty, his quiet strength, and his love. The final blow came when Sophia realized Ethan was not waiting for her anymore. For so long, she had believed he would always be there, quiet, patient, forgiving. She thought no matter what she said or did, he would stay. But now, she could see the truth. Ethan had already moved on in his heart. One afternoon, she returned home and found a small note on the kitchen table. It wasn't dramatic or angry. It was simple, written in Ethan's steady handwriting. "I wish you the best, but I can't be with someone who doesn't value me. Take care." Her chest tightened as she read the words over and over. This wasn't the man she thought she could control. This wasn't the quiet husband who always gave in to her demands. This was a man who had finally chosen himself over her. The house felt colder that night than ever before. She walked from room to room, expecting to hear his calm voice or see his familiar smile, but there was nothing, just silence. For the first time, she truly felt what life without him meant. Sophia broke down in tears. The image she had built of herself, confident, desirable, powerful, shattered completely. All the men she had tried to impress, all the pride she had held on to, meant nothing now. She realized too late that her arrogance had destroyed the very thing she needed most: Ethan's love. The truth was undeniable. Ethan was irreplaceable, and she had lost him forever. Ethan walked away from the marriage without anger in his heart. He didn't want revenge, and he didn't wish for Sophia to suffer. He only wanted peace, something he hadn't felt in years. By choosing himself, he found the strength to start over. He focused on building a new life, one step at a time. His mornings began with quiet runs to the park, where he breathed in the fresh air and felt alive again. He spent more time with friends who supported him, surrounding himself with laughter and encouragement instead of arguments and blame. At work, Ethan poured his energy into new projects. His confidence grew, and soon others began to notice. He was no longer the quiet man living in the shadow of a troubled marriage. He was strong, capable, and free. Over time, Ethan also opened his heart again. He didn't rush into anything. But when he met someone who valued his kindness and patience, he allowed himself to hope. Unlike before, he now understood his worth and would never settle for less than respect. Ethan's story was no longer about loss. It was about growth. Sophia's arrogance had tried to break him, but instead, it pushed him toward a brighter future. His new beginning was proof that sometimes the end of one chapter is the start of a much better one.